Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Come Back Stronger, where we bring you stories of people who have overcome significant adversity and gone on to help other people come back stronger. I'm Dana Brooks of Fasig Brooks Law Offices, and I'm joined today by my law partner, Jimmy Fasig.
Hello.
Jimmy, we've got a great story today.
I'm so excited.
Yes, this is a story by Michaela Canterbury. She wrote a book called Sister Siren, and you'll find out where you can get that later, but she talks about her struggles and her journey helping her sister overcome addiction, and it started out the way it often does, an accident, an injury. Her sister was a very high-performing athlete, and she got hurt, like people do, and she got hurt younger, you know, but she got prescribed all the opioids and that sort of thing, and then it grew, and it just kind of snowballed. But what's interesting about this family and the book that she wrote was a lot of times this is overlooked in high-performing families. Yeah.
So my understanding is that she was a very high-performing person, the sister, and despite that, she was still suffering from addiction. And it brings to light the fact that you really never know what somebody's going through.
You don't.
How many people are out there, and they might be, for example, she was getting her master's degree. She seemed to have everything going for her on the outside, but on the inside, she's struggling with something that's really, really painful and challenging.
Yeah, and when someone is so good at covering up their their weaknesses. You know, she went through a very rigorous educational process. She was a high-performing professional in her community, looked to as a leader, married to someone equally as accomplished as she is, and no one saw this. You know, you'd say, oh, well, is this going on? Or, oh, no, she's just struggling. Or, of course, she must not be struggling too much because look at what she's doing. Everything's going great in her world, so she can't possibly need any help. But this is a real eye-opener for me, listening to Michaela's story about her sister. So I can't wait to get back and hear the first segment of it, and we will be right back after this. She contacted me almost in a fugue. She couldn't believe that it happened, and something told her, this is not right.
She had lost her daughter.
This is not right. My little girl should be here, and I'm going to do something about it. She contacted me, and I went to see her, I think, that day, and we sat at her dining room table, and she showed me the program from the funeral, and I met her sons and saw her gravesite, and I just told her, I don't know what happened, but I'm going to find out, and we're going to do something about it. And she and I bonded right then, and she's been in my life ever since. And seeing how she has used something that is an unimaginable loss and found some way to live a better life and make a better life for her son. There's nothing better. And we are back for our first segment of our interview with Michaela Canterbury about her book, Sister Siren, that she wrote about her very high-performing sister's struggles with addiction and how she was able to turn it around. Take a look.
Michaela Canterbury, attorney, author, want to thank you so much for being a guest today on Come Back Stronger.
Thank you for having me.
You are the author of a book called Sister Siren, and it's a nonfiction about addiction. And it's kind of a personal memoir of your life and your growing up. And why don't you tell us a little bit about the story behind the book?
Well, the story about the book is inspired by our family's journey with my sister. She became homeless, and she was on the streets of Anchorage, Alaska. She was a heroin and meth addict, and we are a family of high-functioning professionals. I'm a trial lawyer. My father's a trial lawyer. My mother's a PhD. My sister has a master's in counseling, and she was a college athlete at the highest levels, even considered playing for the Seattle soccer team, the women's soccer team. I think it's called the Sounders or something like that, but she chose the education route instead of the athletic route. Anyway, basically it started with a pill addiction and progressed to heroin and meth to the point of homelessness and on the streets of Alaska. And so this was brewing underneath our noses, and none of us knew. And we come from a small town in Alaska. So, coaches didn't know, community members didn't know, family didn't know. And so it's really a story about how it surfaced and came to our attention. and how our family stepped in to help my sister navigate through the addiction that gripped and possessed her. And it has a happy ending. My sister is, we're going to be honoring 4 years of recovery this March of 2023.
How old was your sister when the problem started for her?
Yeah. So my sister is 13 years younger than I am. So we're kind of like, it's a unique sibling relationship where, I mean, my parents got a built-in babysitter and like a really cool sub-parent for my sister. Yeah. And so there's really a generation and a half between us. Anywho, she was competing in the Arctic Winter Games in Canada and lost an edge and broke her ankle going feet first into the boards. And so in Canada, they just triaged her and we got her back to Alaska. But they started with hydrocodone and oxycodone for the significant pain that she experienced in that significant injury that she sustained. Shortly after that, she was diagnosed with, and this would be like late 80s, early 90s timeframe, I'm thinking, if memory serves correctly. She was diagnosed with ADHD. And she was given medication for that as well. And so my parents are just following the doctor's advice of what to do in these situations. And so her mind and body and spirit, if you will, learned early on how to cope with pain and became dependent upon medication.
Yeah, and that time frame was really kind of before they recognized oxycodone and hydrocodone as being as potential addictive causing drugs as they are. I mean, that was back then. You're chewing them like aspirin, but that was nowadays you realize how addictive those are.
Well, yeah, and this was given to a preteen. So like her body and her mind is becoming dependent when her body and mind and spirit are still developing. And so, I mean, it really puts this overlay on her development.
Yeah. And of course, and I imagine the mindset of your family this time is here is you have this young girl who is, like I said, an excellent athlete and she's hurt. And you're trying to do the best you can for her, and you're sympathetic to her. So I don't want to say you turn a blind eye to it, but you kind of overlook some of that stuff because she's hurting and you just want her to get better.
Well, and we didn't know. And remember, I mean, my dad and I we're personal injury lawyers, so I saw ankle breaks. I mean, when I became a lawyer, at the time when this happened, I was not a lawyer yet, but my dad was. So we're familiar with slip and falls and break your ankle and know those to be painful, debilitating physical injuries. And you don't want to see somebody in pain, but you're right. That time frame, it was not known the addictive qualities of those pain medications, particularly and then if you double down with like Ritalin, which is basically meth light, on top of the hydro and the oxy. I mean, looking back on that, that's a complete recipe for addiction,
Yeah. How many years did she struggle? I mean, you said she was like a preteen when this all started. So this had to have been going on for, several 4 or 5 years, or I think 6 years is the.
Oh, it followed her into college. I mean, she was, I mean, it progressed from, oxy and hydro and and how her ADHD was being managed. And then that just took off. She was using all kinds of drugs in high school and in college, and she was high performing. And we did not know that she was using those medications and using those drugs. I mean, she was performing great. There was no indication. I mean, she was getting through school. She was, she not only getting through, she was, good grades, dating the captain of the soccer team, and she's the captain of the women's soccer team, and they got married, and it seemed everything was fine. She was managing, but we did not know that she was managing being dependent upon medication and other drugs.
How did she end up homeless? It sounded like everything was going well other than this crippling addiction in the background that nobody saw.
So she married the captain of the soccer team, they returned to Alaska, and they were delivering the services and skills that they were educated in. And but again, the addiction was happening underneath. Mm-hmm. And then it just surfaced that, I look back on it now and I know what it is, but there were arguments, and there were issues with jobs, holding a job down and maintaining client relationships, because her skill set is in counseling. And then stories like, oh, my rent money got stolen and we're being kicked out. And so these little mini crises, and then car wrecks, and it just things started surfacing. So she became homeless. They would lose, they lost a job. They didn't have money. The rent money got stolen.
Well, like you said, though, this story does have a happy ending, and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about everything that you did to help your sister recover, and the book you wrote, and how other people can recognize these signs. So we'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Wow. I love this story because it talks about sibling love. You don't hear that very much. Mm-hmm. You always hear about what parents do and sometimes grandparents and that sort of thing. But, a sibling bond, not that I can know what I'm talking about, but it can be, a very deep
Incredibly. I have 3 daughters, and one of my greatest hopes is that they grow up and they stay close, because right now they're very, very close. Yeah. I'll tell you what really strikes me is, like, for example, I look at you, Dana, and you look so great. You look like you've never had a problem in the world. Right? But I know you, and but I also know you, and I know that you're human, and you've gone through challenges and everything like that. Yeah. That's the thing, is that you never know what's boiling beneath the surface of somebody that you're interacting with, whether you know them for a long time or whether you just met them. Yeah. And so that's, to me, why it's really important to have compassion for what people are going through.
You're exactly right. You're exactly. And I like this. I wonder, though, but the fact that they are sisters, and she was almost like a quasi-parent because they had that 13-year age difference. Yeah. It's like, I imagine there might be a greater sense for Michaela to look out for her little sister. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And she might notice things that other people might not.
So my wife's sister is about, I think, 11 years older than Jeanette. And they have that where Jamil will look out for her. She's more of a semi-motherly figure. Yeah. I mean, they're best friends. Right. They're very, very close friends, but that's the way it goes with siblings.
Yeah. And thank God for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are the people who are going to see things that everybody else misses. Yeah. And I just can't say enough about how awesome it is to see her look after her sister and know, okay, this is a story. Mm-hmm. You didn't lose your rent money. It wasn't stolen from you. This is all starting to look like a pattern here, and I need to take a step. So I'm so glad this has a happy ending, and when we come back after the break, you're going to hear about it. Stay tuned.
And you know what the insurance company offered him? $5,000. Really? He's completely blind, and they offer him $5,000. Yeah. Ask him to sign a release.
To a lot of people, especially when they're hurting and when they're down and when they're vulnerable, $5,000 is a life-changing amount of money. Yeah. And they're not looking at the value of what has been lost. They're not looking at what it would take to make that person whole, which is our job. Yeah. That's our job. Their job isn't. Their job is to save the insurance company money. Right. And they look at this person and they go, I bet $5,000 would get your full attention. Right. And they come in and they dangle it with a settlement release, and then once you sign it, you're done. You can't come back to us and ask us to wave a magic wand and make that go away. That can't go away.
My client didn't accept the $5,000. We took him all the way to trial. We got a $5 million verdict.
And we are back for our producer Greg Bird's second part of his interview with Michaela Canterbury, and she's talking about the book she wrote, Sister Siren, where she talks about how families can help other family members who are struggling with addiction. Take a look.
And we're back with Michaela Canterbury and talking about your sister and her addiction issues. But like I said, this has a happy ending. And you've written a book called Sister Siren, a nonfiction about addiction. And the whole book is kind of the story of your sister and her family, but also how to love and support an addict. And tell us how your experiences with your sister, first off, how you managed to help her get the help she needed and how this led into the book.
Like you said, it's the nonfiction about addiction and a field guide on how to love an addict, because that's basically everything I learned on this. Like when this surfaced in our lives, I was just like, okay, I treated it like a case in my law office. I'm going to do all the research. I'm going to figure out who the bad guy is here. I'm going to neutralize that, and chip, chop, chip. We're going to get her out of this, right? Those tools did not work. And it's everything I learned and the tools that I generated for my own sanity on how to support and love her. Because the only way out of addiction is for them to find their way. And our job, the people that love addicts, I couldn't stop loving her. People are telling me, you got to do this and you got to do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I can't stop loving her. And don't tell me what to do. So these tools that I developed to support and love her, because there were times during this, I wanted her recovery from this terrible possession of addiction more than she did. And so I'm telling her what to do and how to do, and I'm driving through snowstorms to get her to rehab and such. And I wanted it more than her. So how can I, and that would be my recovery, not her recovery. So how can I support her in finding her recovery? That's really what it gets down to. And those epiphanies and those discoveries, are in my book. But one of them is like, there were moments I had to, what's called, what some people call detach with love. I reframed it and I called it loving from afar, especially the moments where I wanted her recovery more than her. And I was starting to get, really mad at her. Sure. She wasn't doing it my way. Well, of course, it's not going to work for her, right? So just tools of loving from afar and taking care of myself so I can step in and love her the way she needs to be loved to find her recovery.
Yeah, I know that's one of the topics in your book is how to self-care, because you do care about this person you're trying to help, but also it takes a toll on you, the person trying to help them. So you got to recognize yourself and when to step away. Another topic you get into is what not to do. And what are some things you learn not to do with an addict?
Don't give them cash, because it's just going to go to drugs. Okay. And I know that sounds simple and easy peasy mac and cheesy, but my mom had a hard time with that, and my sister would say, I need my medication, and my mom was thinking that it was her ADHD medication or her pain medication. And yes, it was, but she was getting her medication on the streets, and so don't give addicts cash. Show up with them and give what you can give, whether it's a meal. So I would show up and I would give her a meal, or I would bring like protein enriched foods, in Alaska, that's like shrimp and salmon, or like granola bars, water, first aid kits, phone chargers, things like that I know that she would, I learned that these are useful things that she could use that would support her in her recovery. But don't give them cash, okay? And don't sign any contracts, whether it's rental contracts or car this or whatever. And there's creative ways that money and financial support can be asked for by addicts. That includes like gift cards and things like that, because they just sell that stuff to get drugs, or they just give it in exchange for drugs. And so being mindful about how you support an addict. So don't give them cash. Don't sign documents that financially obligate you. Don't tell them what to do. I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Nobody likes to be told what to do. And especially don't tell them how to do their recovery. I mean, deep down they want it, right? But telling them how to do their recovery is not the good way to do it. And that's when, things started to come to a head with my sister and I would have to step back and I would realize, okay, I'm overgiving, or I'm overdoing, or I'm telling her what to do. And I became aware of what I call RFFs, red flag feelings. And so I would be like, I would resent her. I would be angry at her. And so I would start, that's awareness of myself. And then I'm like, okay, I've got to step back. I got to love her from afar. And I have to love me a little bit more. We need to get some space here. And I need to get in tune with where this RFF is coming from, and meet with it and get down to the nubbins of it, because I can't have this RFF, whether it's fear of what I'm stepping into or resentment of what she's doing, that it's not my way, so I can better serve her, and step into that relationship in a way that's going to serve her and us in our relationship in a healthy way.
Well, can you tell us more? Where can we find your book? Where can we find more about you? I know you have a website. Go ahead, give yourself a plug.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon, and I intentionally released Sister Siren in September, which was Recovery Month, in honor of my sister's over 3 years of recovery. So it's on Amazon. So if you just type in Sister Siren, Michaela Canterbury, and that's Michael with an A, Canterbury like the tails, not like a strawberry. So Canterbury. I've got a website, mkcanterbury.com. And you can also get it from Barnes & Nobles. They just put it it's available at bookstores now too. So yeah, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at bookstores. You can order it from bookstores, and you can go to my website and order it there. The links are all there to get the book, and leave a review if you love it. Which I hope you do. All those tips and tools and stuff I learned are in the book. I have a glossary of terms. I mean, I had to learn a whole new language, realize that DOC is not Department of Corrections, it's drug of choice. So I've got glossaries. I've got the intervention letters that we wrote, because we did a formal intervention. And I've got all the letters that we wrote, that our family wrote. And it's all in there to help. I really wrote the book that I needed at the time.
Well, Michaela, thank you so much for being on here to Come Back Stronger with us. Thank you for everything you've done, and congratulations to your sister on her 3 years of recovery.
So much of this is bringing up a lot of thoughts, because I, like everybody else in the world, we've had addiction in our family, and unfortunately lost a cousin to it. But this book is so timely, and it is so meaningful, because a lot of people who struggle with this they're on two poles. They're either facilitating it to some degree, just loving them too much, and they just can't give them that, or they're tough love and they're cutting them off. There just doesn't seem to be the book. Like she said, I wrote the book I needed when I was going through this, and what a breath of fresh air it is, because no one knows what to do. And once you've had it enough and you've been through it with them so many times and so much rehab, you just go, enough. I've got to protect myself. I've got to love myself more. But she shows a way to protect yourself, but also continue supporting the people.
100%, and it's something that people need to know. This is very personal to me, because I've had this personal experience myself, and at the end of the day, people need to find their own path. Nobody can make an addict recover, except for the addict themselves. And sometimes it's one of those 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's a tug of war kind of thing, and it's a challenging. The worst part is for the family members. I think, like for example, when I was going through my struggles, I remember my mother, and she was suffering.
Oh yes,
she was really suffering. And so if you're listening, Mom, I'm so sorry for what I put you through. But at the end of the day, the family members suffer, I think, just as much as the person that's going through it.
Oh yeah, probably more, because they're not numb to it. They're firing on all cylinders. They're feeling every one of those feelings that the addict is trying not to feel and trying to be oblivious or in a fog or numb to.
That's why a book like this is so incredibly important.
Yeah, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and wrap up this segment. It's been a wonderful, powerful interview, and I can't wait to finish talking about it right after this. I think people don't understand how harmful it can be to wait. Evidence and people are in the wind. If you need a video of something, that could get recorded over within sometimes 24 hours. So it's not, I ran to a lawyer right away. No, I stood up for myself and preserved evidence and preserved my rights.
I had a case where one of my clients got her finger stuck in a door because the door closer had rusted, and the company had done a terrible job at maintaining it. But she came to us within days of having her finger amputated, and it was so important that she did that because I was able to get an expert to fly down to that condominium to inspect the door closer. I mean, we had evidence within 2 weeks, and we were able to get a wonderful settlement for her, but we wouldn't have been able to if she hadn't have called us and
That would have been
contacted
an
us.
entirely different case even 2 or 3 months later.
Hey there, we're back finishing our two-part interview with Michaela Canterbury. She's an attorney, just like us. She's a personal injury attorney, but author of Sister Siren, a nonfiction about addiction. It's a book she wrote after she watched her younger sister, who first was injured by a sports injury, develop an addiction over time, an increasingly powerful addiction to the point where it made her lose everything. She was homeless, living in Alaska, of all places.
I'll tell you what, one of the things that as personal injury lawyers, one of the things that we see a lot of times is people that are hurt and they're suffering, and they need to have an immediate release from the suffering. And so what is the most immediate release is opioids. And so there's a balance there because they deserve to have relief. They deserve not to have to suffer. But at on the other side of that is you got to be careful not to develop an addiction, and that's not easy to do.
Well, it is very hard, and you can't blame your doctors for it because they're getting the information that comes out, the studies that says this is safe, and they're going to conventions and meetings and they're hearing this is safe. You know, in the 90s and the 2000s, that was, you know, a big feature. Was we don't want people to suffer anymore. Pain is unnecessary. We don't need to do it. But instead of just addressing the pain, a lot of these drugs gave you that euphoric feeling. And then people started going, well, my back isn't hurting, but I sure do have a bad marriage or a bad situation at work, and I'd just like to feel that euphoric feeling. So let me just take this pill. And you can rationalize that all day long if you want to. And as long as you can get the pills, you think, well, nobody's giving me these pills if I'm not supposed to be taking them, so that must be okay. And then next thing you know, you're getting them off the street, you're selling things, you're living a life you never saw coming. Your family can't even understand it.
It is amazing how fast you can go downhill when the addiction hits you. It is absolutely,
it's the boss.
Absolutely.
But this has been a wonderful interview with Michaela Canterbury. We hope you join us again next week for another segment of Come Back Stronger. And if you know someone who'd be a good interview, let us know. Reach out to us. We'd love to have them on. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Just because you have a pre-existing injury does not mean that you are not entitled to compensation for the injury being aggravated or exacerbated by somebody else's carelessness.
I talk to new clients all the time, and they're concerned that because they had a prior neck injury or back injury, that they can't bring a claim now that they've been made worse.
Absolutely not.
And so I'm so glad that they call so we can explain to them that in Florida, no, we're able to get you compensation for any way that your body has changed in a negative way because of this accident.
I've also had clients who've said, well, I think I'm partially at fault here. Do I have a case? In Florida, you can be partially at fault. You can be 90% at fault, but you still have a case for the other 10% that was somebody else's fault. That's incredibly important.